Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Helen Brzycki from Spring Garden Leasing. Helen, how are you?
Good. Nice to be here, Pat.
Great, great. So, Spring Garden Leasing is a property management company, right?
Correct. Yes.
And what are some of the services you offer to your clients?
We do full service property management. We do tenant screening, rent collections, evictions, all that kind of good stuff that goes with property management.
Perfect. So, how long have you been in the property management business?
I got my real estate license about 25 years ago. Worked for an investor for a couple years who owns a lot of properties, did a lot of property management, learned what I could there. And then I guess I went out on my own, had my own property management company for about 25 years now.
Okay, great. And how many properties are you managing currently?
We manage about 300 here.
Okay. And what kind of mixture is that? Do you have some people that just own one property that you manage and there's others not? Like, how's that make up?
Yeah, we have about 50 or 60 owners, and I would say that the bulk of them only have one or two properties, and then the rest, obviously, have a little bit more. So, yeah,
Right. So out there, if somebody is starting a real estate portfolio and I have one property, that's something that you can take on, right?
absolutely,
Perfect.
yes.
Okay, great. So let's get into some of the things you would need if I buy a property and I want to rent it out. So licensing would be the first thing that would come to mind. So what are some of the licenses that you would need to be able to rent out a property in Philadelphia?
Okay, so the first thing that you need is you need a commercial activity license. Okay, that's a one-time fee to the city. I think it's like $250 possibly. And then after you obtain that, you can get a rental license, which that's about 60 or $65. That does renew every year per unit. Okay. Um, you can do everything online at www.phila.gov to get those licenses. They'll direct you to the first thing that you're going to have to do is to get a Philadelphia tax account number because, everything's linked together and the city of Philadelphia
They
wants to
want their money.
get the tax
They
money
want their
too.
money.
So for sure, yes.
Okay. And then other things that you would need, I've heard of lead-based paint, the suitability, those kind of things.
Yep.
So,
So you'll need a certificate of rental suitability when you go to rent the unit. And what that is again, that can be obtained online. And that states that the property doesn't have any violations on it and you are able to rent it. Okay. And that needs to be signed by the owner and we get the tenant signature as well. And then you do need a lead based paint safe certificate, a lead safe certificate. So every unit will need a lead based paint test every 4 years. And then if the lead is within the acceptable levels, they'll give you a certificate that needs to be uploaded to the state's website. And again, that has to be done every 4 years. And that also needs to be attached to the lease.
okay. And then what is the price for the lead-based paint? And you have people that will go out there and do that
We do
for,
have a company that we work with. I think their prices are really competitive. Yeah, and it's per bedroom size, obviously, because they'll go in, they'll do a swipe of every bedroom and then a swipe of the living areas.
right.
But a one or two bedroom is like 225, 250, and then
So the
and
bigger
then
the
so
property,
on.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So
Okay. And then that's once every 4 years.
that's correct.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. So you need your activity license, you need your renter's license, you need the lead-based paint done, and then you also need the suitability, right?
exactly.
Okay, and
Yes.
then the most important for the city, the tax.
Tax account number, that is the most important, yeah. So there's a couple other things that do go with the lease
Right.
that, you wanna make sure that you get to, Partners for Good Housing Handbook, and then the lead-based paint pamphlet that goes with that certificate also need to be, given to the tenant at the time of the lease signing, so, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Um, Now, the accounting part. So one of the big things is, I don't want to collect rent or I'm out of town. So that's part of the services that, pretty much all property managers do, correct?
Yeah, of course. The rent collection is a big part of property management. And the accounting end of it is everything is web based. The tenants can pay online and the owners can see online. So a lot of owners do hire us just for the accounting aspect of property management. Yeah. So they might have just the one or two properties, but they also might have another job. They might have a couple properties, but they might have a business partner, and so that way, they seem to be really happy with that aspect of it. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So that's great. And then the reports will be online or you'll mail it out as far as monthly and year-end 1099s and all that stuff?
Yes, they get a monthly report. Again, they can see that online. Right now, we've gone to bank to bank transfer to pay in the majority of the owners. So I'll just email them the report that matches that bank to bank transfer.
Okay,
Okay. Some of them get a paper check, not too many. And then, of course, they get the end of the year year end report and the 1099s. And they can see them at any time. They can give their accountant the username and the password. He can see them if there's anything missing or they have any questions, then they can always, reach out to us.
perfect. So another big thing if I'm starting off is maintenance. I may not know a contractor, so those you have people in line for that?
Yes, we have contractors that do it all. So yeah, that is a huge part also of, property management, keeping the tenant happy, stuff like that. Now, so I will say that some of the owners, they do their own
Right.
maintenance. I don't get too crazy with, having to do all the maintenance. If they prefer to do it, we certainly do that. We kind of have a mix of everything. Some of them are hands-on, some of them just I never even see them. They want you to handle everything. But if it's a major repair, either way, I'll try, and get a hold of the owner and, just make sure that we're on the same page who wants to do it.
Right. So typically it's up to the owner. If the owner's a contractor or whatever, they can do do some repairs or hands off, they do nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that's exactly right. I mean, some of our owners, like I said, they like to get very involved, and others, I rarely hear from them. We have owners, again, because we are web based, we have owners, that all over the country, and we have owners that are, live in Israel and Africa and everywhere. So,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Rental. So you help people out with getting renters for their properties?
Yeah, we do tenant screening, advertise the property. What we'll do is we do a credit check, an application, landlord reference, income verification, eviction search, run all the searches and everything like that. And then we will get a hold of that owner and go over that application with them,
Okay, perfect.
together.
Now, what is the charge typically for if you find a renter for a property?
1 month rent, I think is, pretty standard, but we charge
So the
the
first
first
one,
month's rent.
right? So if it's
Yeah.
$1,500, it's the first month's rent you collect, and then after that, okay.
Yes.
And then for all the accounting services and the maintenance and all that kind of stuff, what is a typical fee that a property management company charges?
I mean, typically it'd be between 7 and 10%. That would be the range. And that covers all aspects of the property management. We don't, mark up any of the construction bills or the maintenance bills or anything like that. So what we pay, what you see is what we paid. It seems to work out. But again, if you had the one property, then you might be closer to the 10% range. If you had a bulk of properties, then you'd be closer to the 7%.
Right. So if the rent's $1,000 a month and I have one property, then I could expect to pay about $100 for the management part of it.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the biggie, which a lot of people have questions on, eviction. So
Right, right, right.
we
Yeah,
save the
yeah,
best for
yeah.
last, eviction, right? So what is that process?
The eviction process, I will say, has gotten pretty lengthy in the city of Philadelphia. But again, whatever the lease is, our lease is a 10-day notice, and then we can file eviction. Um, right now, the tenants have to go through an eviction diversion program, which the city implemented during COVID. And what that is it really takes about 60 days. What they do is they contact the tenant, they contact the owner, in an effort to get the tenants to stay in the properties. And of course, the owners to get paid. They've
Right.
implemented this program, and they subsequently have made that permanent even after the COVID restrictions were lifted. So it can be pretty time consuming.
So let me ask you this question. So you say they contact the owner. Do they contact the owner, or if you're managing it, do they contact
They
you?
contact the management company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Um,
so if you want to be hands off, you're not involved there.
yeah, no, no,
Okay.
no, you're not involved there. So
Okay. So you have to send out a 10-day notice, and that's basically you send it to the tenants for non-payment, right?
yes.
And then there's that 60-day negotiation,
Yeah,
mediation
that's for
part.
non-payment. I mean, you can evict a tenant for, breach of lease. There's other conditions just besides non-payment. The
Okay.
bulk of what we do is for non-payment, but if they were, to be, any kind of drugs found in the property or any repeated like noise complaints, that kind of stuff, then there are other um, conditions that can, precipitate an eviction filing, but the bulk of it is for rent collection, yeah. And then if it is for, for past due balances, then you are required to participate in that eviction diversion program.
Okay.
City.
So now 10 days went by, 60 days gone by. Now you get a court hearing at that point, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get a court hearing, and we're gonna again, the lawyer, we work with a lawyer as well, and they do all this, and so you're gonna get a court hearing, and we're gonna go to court, and you hope that we'll be there, of course, and you hope the tenant is there, and we can either come to some agreement, some kind of payment agreement, or they'll agree to get out. So.
Now, from the mediation to getting a court date, is there a time span in between there, or?
I mean, they really have a backlog of cases that they just can't seem to expedite for some reason. So
So
it's
there
been
could be another
taking
month or so to even
at
get.
least, I
Okay.
mean, and it's really it's been taking about maybe from start to finish, like sometimes 6 months to get people out. So it's kind of important that you start right away if you feel it's going in that direction.
Okay. So now you get your court date, you win, then what's the next step?
Well, by when, I mean, if they agree to go out and they go out at a certain date, then that's a win. But if they agree to go out, they don't go out, or you just get a judgment for the amount of the money that you're owed. But again, they're still living in the property. I mean, our ultimate goal is to get that property back for the
Right.
owner. So at that point, if they're still in there, I mean, it has to go to the sheriff's office, and you're waiting for a lockout date. Again, they seem to be extraordinarily, long time periods that we're waiting for. And it's my understanding that they're only doing right now 20 lockouts a day throughout the whole city, again, with a huge backlog, from COVID. So
So then that means you could potentially wait another 2 or 3 months just to get the sheriff to lock them out. So
that's
go out there, make sure they're out, change the locks, and that's it.
that's correct. Unfortunately, yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So so owning a property isn't as glamorous as one might
It's
think.
not.
There you
It's
go.
not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of reward. I mean, but and the city, yeah, there's a lot of regulations out there at this point in time. So again, all the more reason to have a property manager, which I think you actually need to have one if you're in the city. If you don't live in the city, that is another thing to keep in mind. I
Okay.
think you are supposed to have property manager from the city if you own a property in the city and you rent it out. But yeah, there's a lot of regulations out there, changing all the time, stuff. So
Okay. And if there was one piece of advice, let's say I'm buying my first property, what would be the best advice and some of the pitfalls like that you're seeing from people?
I would say the best advice and most important advice is you have to be in compliance with all that paperwork that we talked about in the beginning. You have to have that rental license, and it has to be current, and it has to be before you put the tenant into the property. So you have to have that certificate of rental suitability. And so I guess, there's the regulations are changing every day. And so you really need to have all that paperwork if you want to get a court date, which, like I said, if you get your court date and you're missing something, I mean, you could find yourself, back to
Back to
the
square one.
beginning,
Right.
And that's a tough pill to swallow when you're,
Waiting all that time.
when you're
So,
waiting all that time, for
right.
sure.
So to do the eviction process, all the paperwork has to be in hand, or else you can't even do the eviction process. So that would be the number one most important thing.
It's true. And then
Right.
we have, if you have a tenant in there and they don't pay all of a sudden, and a lot of times we have, somebody come to us and say, can you help me get this tenant out? And I'll look through the paperwork, and I can't even do anything because they don't have the rental license, they don't have the certificate of rental suitability. If you do get that eventually, then they'll a lot of times they'll discount all that rent beforehand that is owed, and they'll just look at the date that you obtained those licenses.
Okay.
So yeah,
So number
and
one most important thing, make sure your paperwork is together.
it's true for the city. It's true.
Okay. Well, that's some really good stuff there, Helen. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah,
We
thanks
really
for having me,
appreciate it.
Pat.
Perfect. Well, that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Be sure to subscribe to the show. I have some great guests coming up. Great content. Also, follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. Also, leave a comment. Super important. Leave a comment and tell me some show topics you like like for me to cover in the future. Um, I hope you enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.